All right, let's talk about a real giant of English history. A figure who, depending on who you ask, was either a national hero or an absolute villain. Sir Francis Drake. So which was it? A celebrated explorer or a cold-blooded pirate? Okay, let's just dive right into the heart of it. On one side of the coin, you've got Sir Francis Drake, Vice Admiral, legendary explorer, the first Englishman to sail around the entire globe. A hero, right? But flip that coin over, and to his sworn enemies, the Spanish, he was El Drac, the dragon, a pirate, a privateer, and yes, a slave trader. So how can one person be both of these things at the same time? And this right here perfectly captures that conflict. On the left, you see his official coat of arms, a symbol of honor and nobility, given to him by the Queen of England herself. But on the right, that's the messy, violent reality of his life's work, chaotic naval battles. This is the story of a man who was celebrated for the very same actions that made him so feared and hated.
So, where did this all begin? Let's rewind a bit and look at his early days to see how a humble farmer's son was forged at sea and ended up becoming Spain's worst nightmare.
Drake was born around 1540 to some pretty humble beginnings. He went to sea early, and by the 1560s he was sailing with his cousin John Hawkins. Their business? Sailing to West Africa, capturing people, and selling them into slavery in the Spanish colonies. But the real game changer, the moment that basically defined the rest of his life, came in 1568, when the Spanish ambushed their fleet at San Juan de Ulua. That one event changed everything.
Now, take a good look at this ship. This is the Jesus of Lubeck. And guess who owned it? Queen Elizabeth I herself. She personally lent this ship to Hawkins for his slaving voyages. And this isn't some minor detail. It's a huge deal. It shows that the English crown was directly in on these brutal ventures that Drake was an active part of. So, what was he really? Well, to the English, he was a privateer. Think of it like this. He basically had a government-issued license to go out and attack foreign ships. For a small nation like England trying to challenge the massive Spanish Empire, guys like Drake were a low-cost, deniable way to wage war. But, if you're the one getting robbed, you're not going to care about some piece of paper. To the Spanish, he was a pirate. End of story. And that brings us right back to that ambush at San Juan de Ulua. The Spanish broke a truce they'd made and attacked the English fleet. Hundreds of sailors were killed or just left behind. Drake barely got out with his life. You can bet that lit a fire in him, a personal, lifelong vendetta against the entire Spanish Empire. And that burning desire for revenge, and let's be honest, for a whole lot of gold, led him straight to his most famous, most legendary achievement, his voyage around the world. From 1577 to 1580, this ship, the Golden Hind, set off on an unbelievable 3-year journey to sail all the way around the planet. The journey was absolutely brutal. He started with 5 ships. This was the only one that made it back home to England. So why was this voyage so famous? One word, plunder. In today's money, Drake's personal haul is estimated at nearly $168 million. Yeah, this trip wasn't just about exploration. It was basically one giant, incredibly successful heist along the Pacific coast of the Spanish Empire. And to give you an idea of just how much money we're talking about, check this out. From just one ship, the Spanish galleon Cacafuego, he took 80 pounds of gold, 13 chests of silver coins, and 26 tons of pure silver. Get this. The Queen's cut from this one voyage was more than the entire country's income for a whole year. Just think about that. But all that gold, all that glory, it came at a serious cost. What was it actually like to be on that ship, under his absolute command, for 3 long years, totally isolated from the world? Well, partway through the trip, Drake turns on his own co-commander, a guy named Thomas Doughty. He accuses him of mutiny, even witchcraft, holds a sham trial right there on the ship, and has him beheaded on some desolate beach in what's now Argentina. Talk about sending a message. After that, you can be sure nobody questioned his authority. So when he finally gets back to England, you'd think he'd be in trouble for piracy and, executing his friend, right? Nope. He was a hero. The Queen herself comes aboard the Golden Hind, knights him on the deck, and gives him this coat of arms with the motto, Sic Parvis Magna, great achievements from small beginnings. His piracy wasn't just forgiven, it was celebrated as national policy. And that success completely changed his status. He went from being a state-sponsored pirate to vice admiral of the English Navy, getting ready for an all-out war with the Spanish Armada. And in 1588, the big one happened. Spain sends its massive, supposedly invincible armada to crush England once and for all. And who's waiting for them as second in command of the smaller, outgunned English fleet? You guessed it, Sir Francis Drake. This was the ultimate David versus Goliath showdown at sea. You've probably heard the legend that when the news came that the Armada was on its way, Drake was supposedly playing a game of bowls, and he just coolly said, "There's plenty of time to finish the game and still beat the Spaniards." It's almost certainly not true, but man, does it make for a great story. It's the perfect image of that unflappable English confidence. So how did they win? Well, a big part of it was this brilliant and pretty ruthless tactic you see here: fire ships. They took a bunch of their old ships, stuffed them full of anything that would burn, set them on fire, and just sent them sailing right into the middle of the Spanish fleet while they were anchored at night. It caused absolute chaos, broke the Armada's formation, and Drake was right in the thick of it. But it wasn't all just victory parades for Drake. You have to remember the flip side. Just 1 year later, he helps lead the English Armada, a mission to invade Spain. And it was an absolute, unmitigated disaster. Thousands of English died, and Drake's own reputation took a massive hit. So that brings us to the end of his life, and right back to the debate we started with. Why is it that more than 400 years later, we're still arguing about L. Drake? It's kind of fitting, really. He died just as he lived, at sea. In 1596, he got sick with dysentery during one last failed raid against the Spanish. His last request was to be put in his full suit of armor. Then they sealed him in a lead coffin and buried him at sea off the coast of Panama. A privateer to the very end. And this isn't just dusty old history we're talking about. Look around today. His legacy is being challenged everywhere. Schools, hotels, and streets named after him are being renamed. Statues are coming down. Why? Because we're all grappling with his direct role in the slave trade, piracy, and colonialism. So it all comes back to this one really tough question. He was a brilliant sailor, a national hero who helped save his country from invasion. He was also a slave trader, a ruthless pirate who built his fame on stolen treasure. So, how should we remember figures who are both pioneers and plunderers? That's the messy part of history that's left up to us to figure out.